we're here to speak about the new trends in digital. So I'm going to give the floor to Ziad, who will start the presentation.
Hello. Um, Let me start first by introducing myself. I came back to Lebanon 5 years ago. I was, sorry?
The person.
Sorry. Is that better? Okay. So I grew up in California, where in 1995 I started a digital e-commerce company. And I worked for 5 years in this company, where we were successfully acquired. I continued my time in this field, working with web technologies, marketing technologies. And from there, over those 15 years, I started AdBloom, which is a digital agency. Now, okay. So before we talk about what we're doing today in digital media, let's look where we were just 20 years ago. So in 1994, the first banner ad was put online, and as you can see down there, that was actually the first ad. And we had 13 million internet users. And here we are today. In 1998, we have search marketing that started with GoTo. Now you can see a lot of the search ad with Google. And it started just in 1998. And in 2002, internet users now surpassed 500 million. And MySpace, if you guys know what that is.
Anyone remembers MySpace? Oh my God, okay. So that
All
was
right.
the king back then.
So a few people aren't familiar with MySpace, but it was really the biggest social network back in the day. So in 2004, Facebook launched with just a few users. Twitter in 2006. BlueKai, which is a data management exchange, in 2008, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And just 6 years after Facebook launched, they hit 500 million users. And here in the Middle East, in 2013, we had about 90 million users, and now we're at about 400 million users. And this year, now in 2016, Gmail has hit 1 billion active users, and Facebook at 1.7 billion. So we're talking about just over the last 20 years, how massive the internet has grown, how these platforms started off with 0 users, and now there are over 1 billion users. Now we had 16 million or 13 million users in 1994, and now we're at over 3.7 billion users worldwide, which is basically half the world's population. So when this massive new universe is being created, we have huge amounts of data that's being generated. And with a lot of data and a lot of, let's say, web traffic, as marketers, we have opportunity to tap into those markets and be able to market whatever product or service that we have. Now, some of these technologies include data management platforms or data aggregators, DSPs, which is demand-side platforms, SSPs, which is supply-side platforms, and RTBs, which are real-time bidding platforms. Now, these are a lot of new technologies that have emerged and developed over the last 5 and 10 years, because we're dealing now with not 10 million internet users or 5 million or 20 million or 100 million. We're dealing with 3.5 billion internet users. So a lot of these technologies now make sense when you're dealing in the millions of internet users and now billions. So, and I'll touch on those a little bit later. Okay. So, and as you can see, just 5 years ago, when we started AdBloom digital agency, there were about 100 main platforms, let's say marketing platforms. That has grown to 1,800 platforms just last year. And now we have over 3,500 platforms in marketing that have emerged over just the recent years. I mean, that number has doubled. And this is basically sort of a timeline of all these new and great marketing and data exchange platforms that have emerged because of this rapid growth in volume. And this is the marketing landscape. It's a bit hard to read from there, but I think you get the point. Okay, so as marketers, how can these platforms help us? So let's look at advertising and promotion. Some of these platforms are focused on distribution of ads, whether it's banner ads or video ads or native ads. We have content and experience platforms. We have commerce and sales. When you're dealing with e-commerce, you're dealing with tracking, you're dealing with looking at the let's say the funnel stream of an e-commerce shopper from visiting the website to adding things to his shopping cart. We have social and relationship platforms, and we have data management platforms. So we have all these different types of platforms that we're now dealing with in marketing. And so today we're going to speak a little bit more about programmatic advertising, native advertising, and what to track as far as KPIs go, and as far as KPIs. So programmatic advertising, anybody heard of it here? Anybody? 1, 2, okay, 3, 4, 5. So now that you have all these different platforms, programmatic advertising is sort of loosely defined over the years, but now it's becoming a little bit clearer what it is. It's basically the buying and selling of ads using software. And so when you're dealing with these data management platforms, and you're dealing with all these different types of platforms, you're now actually buying and selling ads without dealing with anybody. And as over the years, now that you have more platforms talking to each other, it's becoming even more complex, and actually giving us marketers better opportunity to drill down and actually target the audience that we want to target. So this is from the IAB, which is the Internet Advertising Bureau. It's actually a schematic that shows the different platforms. You have ad exchanges, the sell-side platforms. You have the social data tools that are feeding into the whole process of buying ads online or selling ads online. And you have a lot of these platforms work with cookie data. And so when you have the advertiser, he wants to advertise his product, for example, real estate. He's looking at the different ad servers, and he's looking at, okay, who he can target. He has an apartment in Lebanon, project in Lebanon. He wants to geo-target those users in Lebanon. And sometimes you're looking at outside Lebanon. So you want to start leveraging the data exchanges of people that are actually visiting Lebanon and browsing and showing interest within Lebanon. Okay, so again, a lot of the anybody know is it cookies? You guys like cookies? So a lot of these exchanges, again, they work off of cookies, and they work off of building profiles within those cookies. So as you're browsing through the internet, it's building up your profile, and those profiles are then leveraged when we're looking to target users on the internet. Okay, so again, you have visitors coming in from different websites. There are all kinds of users. You have different ages, different areas, different interests. If it's a sports, somebody who's a sports enthusiast, a technology enthusiast, if they're looking at entertainment, you then have age. Okay, and you have intent. So some people that are actively looking for a new car, for example. So they start going to different websites about cars, and so they get tagged. Their cookie gets tagged as a potential car buyer, and they start looking at, let's say, more luxury goods. So then it's a potential luxury car buyer. So you can cross-market using the different data that this potential cookie has. Okay? So here in this example, we have, let's say, a 30-year-old female, young mother who is intending to buy a car. So when we drill down and we're able to extract all those cookies by the tens of thousands and millions, then we drill down to the potential advertisers where we want to actually buy media and show our, let's say, Mini Cooper or whichever luxury car. Okay. Another example of programmatic, you can use something called retargeting. And how many people have actually gone to bookings.com and tried to book a flight, let's say, or book a hotel room, book a hotel room on bookings, and all of a sudden everywhere you go you start seeing bookings.com and your, let's say, your hotel in Paris. So in this instance, the systems start talking to each other. So let's say bookings, they're like, okay, we want to target this potential shopper who hasn't made a purchase yet, who hasn't put in their phone number or credit card or anything, and we want to target them to come back to bookings and make a booking and reserve their hotel. It's because they have shown interest already by coming to the site. And what we can also do with these platforms is actually cross-market. So you have somebody coming in that wants to book a hotel. So Air France says, okay, I'll buy that cookie data and market a potential fare promotion to Paris. And so they go through the exchanges and they're buying that cookie data and they're using their promotional banner to market to that potential user. Something a little bit more indirect is that this user who went to bookings looking to place a reservation on bookings for Paris actually is a avid tech user. They've been to all the tech sites. They look at software for programming. They visit, the latest news in, with Microsoft and Apple and whatnot. And so they have been tagged as an avid tech enthusiast and maybe even a programmer. So they travel because they're already at bookings and maybe they're visiting airline sites. And so you have a tech expo in the UK, which is just now 2 hours by train. Banner coming and actually targeting this potential visitor. So with targeting based, you can target by audience, you can target by travel time. I've seen it done many times, and where you have bookings, somebody's coming in, they're looking for a trip, let's say between November 1st and November 5th. Maybe there's a concert happening at that time. So certain cookie data, when you're dealing with large volume, they're actually targeting those users that are going to be in France, even though they're not in France or in Paris between those dates. They're targeting with, let's say, a concert that's going to happen on November 2nd or 3rd. Okay? So we've talked about programmatic, and within programmatic, and even outside of programmatic, I guess, you have native advertising. And native advertising is growing in popularity. It's being integrated into a lot of systems. And what is it exactly? It's actually just paid media that's embedded within a website that makes it look like it's part of the website. So if you go into so it could be either articles, videos, images, infographics. And here you have 75% of publishers have actually embedded native advertising within their websites. This is an example of Forbes. They have something from Fidelity. Fidelity is pushing a product, and they want to target potential financial readers or potential savvy financial people. And so they have what looks like an article, but it was actually written by Fidelity. Now Forbes calls it brand voice, but in actuality it's just an ad. So I'm not sure. Are you guys familiar with native ads? Are you using native ads? Anybody out there? Yes? Great. So a lot of the publishers, 3 out of 4 actually have integrated. You can see it on CNN, car sites. And so we use native ads. 41% of brands are actually using it. And we use native ads as a way to brand content and to brand our offering and our businesses. So it's great for branding. It's great to show share of voice and thought leadership, and it's good also for targeting. So if you're targeting something that's luxurious, you're going to target maybe some of the financial websites, maybe a yacht website, and it looks like it's part of the readership. So the user comes in there and is consuming the native ad as much as any of the other articles, and they can draw more attention than just a banner ad. Now, some of the native ads actually can be not just an article, but actually can be videos. Okay, so we're using programmatic. It's relatively new system. These things are evolving. They're becoming more and more complex. But are we doing it right? And sometimes you have to ask yourself, are we doing it right? Is it working? So what we do at AdBloom, we actually look at each of our clients individually, but we apply the same method. So we try and understand, okay, well, where are we today? And where do we want to be in X days, or in, what is our goal? We are here and we want to get there. And in between, what is the objective? What do we actually want to do? And we use the strategy of how are we going to do it from more of a global level, and then we drill down into the actual tactics and the into booking the media and running the different campaigns. Okay, so and the last part is really control. Okay, so that's where we measure and understand, did we do this right? And sometimes we did, and sometimes we didn't. So we go back and see, okay, well, what it was working, what was not working. So we need to understand what our goal was and be able to measure that. And that's why digital advertising actually has really done great for marketers, because we've been able to measure the results. We're throwing $50,000 on an ad campaign. What are we truly getting out of it? Okay, so when we're talking about KPIs, key performing indicators, we look at, sometimes we look at from the bottom and we go back. We say, okay, well, for example, we want to bring in 100 new visitors into our restaurant, or we want to sell 20 new apartments. Okay, so we look at that and we say, okay, well, what is it going to cost, or what is it going to take to get those people into the restaurants? What is it going to take? For example, in real estate, you can't sell an apartment online. You can try, but
we intend to do it.
Maybe in the future, near future. But first, you need to go backwards and see, before we get that person to purchase, we need to first we need to first introduce them to the product. So starting with awareness, we need to expose what we're offering. And we look at the offering, and we try and work with the different networks to get the right exposure to the right target audience, in order to have our visitors engage with our advertisement. And typically, you'll see 0.5% of the users that are seeing the ad actually engaging with the ad. And in this scenario, it's basically they're clicking on the ad. So they go down, they click on the ad, and from there they look at the product offering, and they either make a phone call or, let's say, download the brochure. And from there, we see, let's say, 5% or 3% that are actually connecting with the sales team. And so with each phase of the funnel, we want to be able to measure the KPI. So when we drill down, when we're dropping, let's say, $10,000 on marketing, we want to see, well, how many leads did we generate, and what was that cost per lead? And if it was too high, then we need to go back and start with the awareness and say, hey, can we get cheaper exposure? or less expensive exposure. And then we drill down and say, okay, well, we were looking for, let's say, 100 registrations. If we had a 3% conversion rate, let's say from the visitors to the number of people that called, can we get a 6%? Can we double that? And so we need to improve that because we were paying, let's say, too much for the cost per lead. Okay? So again, with KPIs, we look at the reach, engagement, leads, conversions, and with every, obviously with every brand, with every company, and with every department, we look at different KPIs. So your customer service department obviously has a different KPI than your sales department, and your marketing department obviously different than your sales department. So with every, and again, if you're selling online, let's say you're selling products online, then you're looking at, let's say, your repeat business. When you're selling apartments, maybe you're looking for just that one-off sale, or potentially some repeat business, but not as frequent as, let's say, if you're selling a T-shirt online. Usually, when you're selling a T-shirt or you're selling clothing, a lot of times the transaction is a losing transaction. So you're paying $50 to sell a $25 T-shirt. Was it worth it? Depends. It might be, because if that user keeps coming back and buying more and more clothing on your website, then that $50 might turn into actually $500. So when you're measuring, part of the KPI, let's say for e-commerce sites, should be repeat orders. And a lot of times e-commerce sites, they lose money on the first transaction. And the idea is to continue marketing to those users, provide the best customer service, and get them to come back. So it's much cheaper to get a user that has already been through your system, because you have all their information, and now you've cookied them, to come back to the site than it is to bring a new user. So the idea is that you want to be able to measure your return on your marketing dollars all the way through, from your exposure to your sale and then your repeat sales. Because if you're losing on the first business, you're going to need, the first transaction, you're going to need repeat business. Any questions? Okay. So we just touched on sort of the history and how this universe has expanded greatly. We looked at what we're sort of doing today. There's still a lot more to, if you really look, it would take a lot of time to go over everything. But we looked at programmatic, native, and so where are we going to be tomorrow? In 2017 and even further out than that. For sure, we're going to see a lot of these technologies maturing, because a lot of them were very new and have evolved. Some of them started off when there were just a few touch points, and now they're maturing to where now they're integrating with more systems. When you're looking at Gmail, for example, Gmail, when you're advertising through Google, you can actually target users by age, because a lot of Gmail users have filled out more information like their age or their their gender. Okay, we're going to see increased native ad adoption and formats. So a lot of the magazines, the online magazines and the portals that have integrated native ads, they're going to look at other ways to integrate native ads, and they're going to actually start adding video and then maybe native videos and so on. Okay. And the continued rise of data management platforms. So a lot of the bulk of what we're targeting and a lot of interaction that's happening behind the scenes is happening with data exchanges and data management platforms. So if you have a website, you start to build up your visitors, and when you start getting 10,000, 100,000, a million visitors, it's a lot of information. So you need these technologies to be able to manage all these users that are coming and going, and when they start visiting other websites, you start building up their cookie profile or their web profiles. So you're going to see more data management platforms being adopted. And for sure we're gonna see, and we were already seeing the convergence of all of this data with the different platforms. So if you have an ad platform that's selling advertisement, it's connecting with a data management platform, which is actually acquiring additional data to provide more targeted advertising. Okay, and for sure the cross device. So you're looking at news on your laptop, you go to your mobile, you go home to your desktop computer, and you have these cross devices. So the idea, I mean, the trick now is to be able to see, okay, these are 3 different devices, but it's actually just one person. So how can we tie in those cookies into profiling into one person? So that's going to start developing more. That's already being done now, but of course it's going to be improved upon as we move forward. Any questions?
Thank you, Ziad. I'm introducing Joe Aoun. Joe Aoun is the digital manager of Sa'i Real Estate. At Sa'i Real Estate, they've actually went the extra mile and used integrated digital technologies to drive end results to their business. So, Joe, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Is this working? Yeah. Okay. All right. So hello everyone. Thank you, Samar. Thank you, Ziad, for having me and for the introduction. I'm going to start by, and it's a very, digital marketing is very broad, and I cannot cover everything in 15 minutes today. I'm going to talk to you about the summer campaign that we did mainly this summer in 2016 over July, August, and September. And I'm gonna look at it from an angle, and I'm gonna talk about it from an angle of integration, from optimization, from our iterative approach, and how we tackled it basically with our partners at Bloom. But there's a lot of other things we can talk about, but I think we're gonna have to spend the evening here, and no one really wants that. So, but we'll have the opportunity. So, a quick introduction of who is Sa'i Real Estate. I'm gonna be brief. There was a full session earlier about Sa'i Real Estate. But basically, we position ourselves as game changers. We want to provide. We're a real estate developer, cutting-edge technology development. We position ourselves as smart. We developed the Smart Valley concept. Also, we're still young. We're a new real estate developer in the market, but already playing a big role and trying to change the industry itself. We started in 2010 with one small project, an individual building in Blat in Jbeil, and then followed in 2011 by Biblos. Then our first community, because this is really the core of our business, is building communities, smart communities, was Batruna in 2012, and which was delivered this year. And our flagship project until now is Admir, in the heart of the Smart Valley. And hopefully in the coming months you'll hear a lot about Mema, which is our latest project. And they all are part of the Smart Valley itself. We partnered as well with Remax, the international brokerage franchise that we've purchased in terms of we're the master franchise in Lebanon. And we own ourselves 2 franchisees, Remax Properties and Remax Land. So basically our services, we offer full turnkey real estate services ranging from concept design, strategy, planning, all the way down to marketing, sales, customer relationships, CRM, call center, legal advice as well. So for all kind of real estate projects in the country and the region. So now to go into the heart of the discussion, which is online marketing. I'm going to look at it from the omni-channel customer journey point of view. And today, as Ziad said, there's a proliferation of touchpoints, digital touchpoint, from the smartphone, smart devices, smartwatch, the computer, the laptop. So now the journey is no longer linear. It's completely chaotic. So businesses who want to really tackle digital have to go from the single channel proposition, which is the phone, the shops, to the omni-channel proposition, and basically covering being present and having a clear and branded presence on all those channels, which is actually the omni-channel. So being omni-channel, how does that affect my marketing campaign? I can no longer advertise only billboards, because what happens if I don't advertise on the smartphone, if I don't advertise on the web, if I don't advertise on XY channel? So I have to, basically as an advertiser, no, sorry, you just, yeah, stay here. So all the journey now, the customer journey from research to purchase to loyalty and repurchase has become completely, as we can see in the picture, completely hectic, and it goes from the print to offline to online, go back to social media, I search, I call the call center up. So at every touch point, it's important for me as an advertiser to have the proper and relevant communication. And we try to do that at Saudi Real Estate. We'll see how later on. So what's our vision in terms of digital? Where do we see ourselves going, and what do we want really to offer to achieve? So we're trying to become an omni-channel real estate developer. That means putting at the center of our proposition the user. We were talking about Smart Valley earlier in the other session, and the architect, a professor in architecture, said your first point before going into taking any action is asking your end user how we're going to use the building. Do you need small rooms, big rooms? Do you need big closets or not? Do you need big bathrooms? Are you going to stay a lot of time in the bathroom or not? Depends on your users and what they eat during the day. But the user is really the starting point. So you have to put him in the heart of everything you do, all your action plans, from marketing to your proposition. So, and this is what we're trying to build here. So we want to have the single user view. If I recognize my user on mobile, on desktop, in the store, in the showroom, while he's searching. At the same time, when he purchases, it's the same user. He can purchase in any device. And as Ziad was saying, we cannot purchase real estate online. Well, we took the challenge, and hopefully we'll see how we're going to get there. Not yet, but we'll see how we'll get there. So at the same time, you can go in the showroom, you can purchase, but why not book at least your apartment while you're in the US and you've seen a very, you liked an apartment in Lebanon? Why not book it directly online if you have the proper tools and perspectives? And finally, usage. You've moved into your home. You should be able to connect to your home from your mobile on the go. I forgot to turn off the hot water. How many times that happened to you guys? But you already left the house. You can turn it off remotely and then request, I don't know, services and maintenance anywhere you are, abroad or in your own home. So, and this applies as well for our marketing campaign. So we try to provide this 360 degrees. Sorry, Samar, can you just go back to the last one? Yeah. So we placed, again, same thing, the user at the heart of our marketing campaigns. So who is our users? Who is, how does he consume content? How does he consume advertising? They're no longer mono-channel, they're no longer billboards only or print only. So we really try to cover all the different touch points with different propositions for each. And we'll see how in the couple of slides. So a quick intro on the summer. For us, in terms of real estate, in the real estate sector, there's really two big main high seasons. Summer is one of them. Simply because, you know, in Lebanon we have our local market and we have the diaspora. And during the summertime, people come visit their homeland. They're emotional and so on. They enjoy the beaches and they buy apartments. So it was, for us, the stakes were very, very high, and we were really wanted to put everything on our side to make this campaign a success. From a digital point of view, our approach, how we approach the topic, is with the cyclical approach that Ziad introduced. It's always about having the idea. You start by defining your ambitions. So what is your campaign goal? Is it lead generation? Is it brand awareness? And what was tricky for us is that we had to mix both, because we are, as I said, we are still a startup. Not everyone heard about Saudi real estate, and it was important for us to establish our credibility on the market at the same time as acquiring leads at the cheapest price. So it was a bit tricky in terms of ambition. And then we defined our strategy. Our strategy relies on KPIs, on objectives. What do we want to reach? what do we want to reach and where do we want to go. And then we enter this cycle that basically digital allows you to go in and make it virtuous. So we had the idea, we implemented the campaign, we measured the campaign with the proper KPIs, we optimized it, and then restarted the cycle again. So now how do we optimize it? What's the new idea that we have? And we kept keep going in circles, weekly, bi-weekly sometimes, and you'll be surprised by some of the results. Our starting point, as I said, was the user. So before we launched any campaign, we tried to take the data that we had on hand, first-party data from our CRM, from our client information, from past campaigns, and we defined personas. So personas are basically putting names and faces to your clients to really understand each one of them. What's the marketing pitch? What's their concerns? What's the value? How do they perceive the value? And what is, of course, the communication channel? Because someone senior doesn't consume the same way a millennial does. A millennial will spend half the day or more on their mobile phone and watching YouTube videos. Someone more senior will be maybe on Facebook, not on Instagram, for instance. So it's very important to start learning and defining who's your audience and how do they consume your ads. And then so this is the cycle basically in real life, in practice. So we had our Google, Facebook, or whatever digital ads that had each of them had custom URLs. We were able to track every visual, every message, every platform uniquely into the landing page. And then from the landing page, it was connected to our analytics to give us the traffic, the conversion rate, and so on. And of course, our CRM, Microsoft Dynamics, to capture the lead and qualify the lead. Because at the end of the day, it's good to have leads, but if they're not in of good quality, then we're just spending money for nothing. And it's the integration of both tools and our ads that allowed us to remarket the good leads, the leads that didn't convert, that we tried to reconvert, the leads that converted, we tried to upsell them, and then the ads that weren't performing because they had very low qualified leads, we killed them or we tried to optimize them. And for the landing page, well, we started off with the first landing page that's on the left, actually. And we finished with the blue and gray, very simple, very basic landing page, simply by A/B testing. We've played with the results. We started by taking out the slider, the big banner in the middle. Then we tried the variation without the map. We tried the variation without the 6 blocks, without the video, and so forth, so on. And at the end, we realized that the last landing page, which was just clearly the promotions we had at the time, was better converting. And some of you might think that this landing page is not at all appealing or attractive. Other people might think it is. At the end of the day, it's not my opinion that counts or the ads, it's the users. So by A/B testing, we're able to get a scientific approach to what landing page performs best. And this is just an example of the landing page. You can see it has the blue and the branding of the summer campaign of Privé. The message here, this is one example of one ad, which was the free registration. And you'll see how on different platforms we try to replicate and roll out the same messages. So here it's Facebook content. It's completely different in terms of objective, in terms of design as well, but the message is still the same. Summer special, free registration, playing on the emotions. On Google, the banners, free registration, clear call to action, discover more, the phone number. And people actually, you'll be surprised the number of people who actually call and do not click on the ad. The search ads, Google search, same here, Privé by Admir, and then we had the benefit from free registration. On local placements, those banners, they were black and blue, they really attracted a lot of attention. They got a lot of clicks, even though we were kind of skeptical when we first designed them. But after seeing the results, they were even better than the lifestyle and living imagery. But they all have the same kind of branding, the same message, and they are all on different channels. You can find, and the user was able to see them and click on them on different channels. And this is the offline, actually, and you can see that the offline still has the same look and feel with the same message, but it was just a billboard and adapted differently. Next, yeah. So this is just to to give you one idea of just one angle of a digital marketing campaign, which is really covering all the different touch points. And now our next steps for us is to keep working closer with our partners, building our own competences. Digital is always moving. You always have to keep up to date. There's a big learning curve for everyone, and hopefully, we'll get there, and we'll get to the highest results, and reach our objectives.
I leave the floor open for questions. Any questions for?
I just want to say that Sutton Real Estate, one thing that they had the right budget to test different channels to see what was working. If you have a campaign, you want to, okay, let's launch one channel, $5,000. If it works or doesn't work, you won't know if the other channels will work for you. So it's with digital advertising, sometimes certain channels will work better than others. So it's important to test and optimize and be able to track which channels are working. And when they do work, you want to accelerate your budget on those channels.
Sadeh?
There's a question.
Oh, hi. Hi. Derek Isaac's Lebanon Opportunities. It's a question to Ziad first. You touched on about cookies, cookie profiling. And you talked about, I think, for the future about cookie profiling and cross devices. Can you elaborate on that, please? Is that happening now, or is it a future thing, did you say?
It is happening now, but again, there's a certain level of accuracy. So as technology develops, and because now with social media, I mean, social media has really taken off, obviously, over the last 5 years. So the device profiling is, the user profiling is even more detailed. So when you have companies like Google or Facebook, they have maybe a slight advantage because they have maybe more data based on those cookies, more user interactions. Because when you're logged in, a lot of people, they're logging in 2-3 times a day to Facebook, and they're continuing browsing different websites. So they then go to their mobile, they go to their house, it's that same user, and they're able to track that across the different devices. With other sites, it's now in the process. But again, there's a certain level of accuracy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Can I just ask a question to Joe? Can I just hold on to the mic a sec? About the digital campaigns, and you talked about emotions, and you talked about for different platforms, but what makes people click on, the call to action? I think it's the copywriting. I mean, do you have anything to say about that? It's very important, I think, with digital. It's not just about computering great pictures, which are very important. I think the writing has something to do with it. I mean, are the trends in that? Has copywriting stayed the same, or has it moved forward? How does that marry with digital campaigns like yours, for example?
Right. It's a good question. Actually, it's not only copywriting or only the design. It's really the whole thing itself, the whole package that really makes it clickable or not, and the way, if it's relevant. So you have to, again, we talked about the user. So each user have different specificities, cultural, emotional. At the same time, it depends where is he going to look at your ad. Where is the ad going to be displayed? In what mindset will he be? What kind of text would he want to see in that specific moment and on that specific touch point? But copywriting, as much as design for an ad, is really plays a key role. But copywriting by itself, and it's not as important. And it's really both of them, the design and the copywriting, and the visual. Just a quick example: I was yesterday on the highway, and I just got passed by a crazy, insane bus, but it was labeled. It was completely branded, and there was just one tagline on it. It was "Drive safe," and the logo of the brand. And it was like, it's specifically designed for the streets, and they didn't mention anything about the product, nothing about the company itself. But it was on the right place at the right moment, even though the driver wasn't really driving safe. But it was adapted to that specific moment when I was in my car, and it really stuck in my mind.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joe, you presented here many projects in starting 2010 to 2015. Since when you start to integrate social media in soccer company, and percentage-wise, how much the sales has been increased since you start to promote your company or your projects through social media? Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. We started in 2010 with kind of on the low key, and then our marketing and sales activities in-house really picked up one or 2 years ago. And social media was, of course, the first channel we went for, simply because in the region, this is where actually users are always connected and consuming advertising. And at the exact figure of how did that impact our sales directly, it's hard to tell at this point, but it plays, social media for us is more than 80% of our leads actually come from social media. And it's the most performing channel for us, definitely. Après the increase, it's a bit tricky for us to tell you.
Any more questions?
What I could ask Joe is, because it's coming from social media, the age group, if you have some results to share with us, I was expecting some results. So since you don't know, but you have only leads, maybe few sales got done or finalized, what age group was interested more in the ads that I saw your ad several times this summer, so I didn't click on it. So what age group was interested in this campaign? It would be interesting to know, please. Thanks.
Before I answer my question, I would like to answer with a question. Why didn't you click on our ads?
I don't need to buy it.
That's
باخد واحد ببلاش. شاليه صغير ما عليه.
Well, it's our core audience on social media as well as other channel really starts at 25 to 30,
Okay.
and it goes up all the way to 45, which is in line with the market averages. Especially because if you target below 20, you get little interest. People really start to get interested in houses starting 25, and so, more or less. But our core audience is around 30, which is the 30 to 45 really. In terms of sales, I don't have the exact figure, but around 50. 50? 50%.
Out of the digital campaign, you
Yeah.
got 50% sales, not just success as in conversion.
No, in terms of age group,
Oh, okay,
it's 50% of our sales.
Sure. Any questions? Any more? Yes? Go ahead.
Any questions for Ziad?
Yeah, in terms of digital marketing, it's really known as it's a very luxurious place where you can actually change your ads according to testing, as you just mentioned. In case something's not working, you can edit according to the user. But in terms of brands that require purchasing and buying the product, is the success measured according to the number of clicks and conversions, or is it because of how many people have purchased or did the action? Especially if the purchasing is not done online, it's done in person, for example.
So yeah, this is actually the more difficult tracking that you can do as far as offline purchases go. With e-commerce, it's very easy because you're actually tracking everything from the banner ad all the way through the shopping cart, and you're able to track the repeat business. But when you're dealing with offline, we had a client that is actually a casual diner, and he did a campaign purely online. And so if you have historical numbers, so usually we sell $500 a day in takeout orders. And so they were able to actually measure their social media campaigns because they were pretty consistent with their takeout orders. Let's say on Monday, it's usually a little bit higher than on Tuesday and so on. So they were able to measure their offline orders based off of their historical data without advertising. So they ran a campaign only on digital media. And they were able to say, hey, we invested I can't remember how much, but it was, let's say, $500, and we quadrupled our sales. Now, again, when you're going back to repeat business, a lot of businesses lose money on the first transaction, and but in the long term, so you have to look at what is the total value of the customer. So if they're sticking around for 3 years, then bringing them in for $20 is going to make up over those 3 years.
Please.
Marhaba. I have two questions for both gentlemen. The first one, Joe, why did you guys decide to use Microsoft Dynamics instead of Salesforce for CRM? And are you adopting the lean startup when doing the tests? And for Ziad, I'm very impressed. I have a question. Which social media would you use to target people ages 22 to 25? The most major one, among all the other ones. Apparently you have to be everywhere, right? 360 degrees. But what's the major channel you would use to target 22 to 25? Thank you.
You got the easy question. You want to start?
Sure. So when you're targeting that demographic, you have to look at what type of product you want to market to, what type of product you're actually marketing. So obviously Facebook is great because you have the biggest user base on Facebook. When you're looking at Snapchat and looking at Instagram, these are new channels and they could be more effective. So if you have a branding campaign, it might do better actually on Instagram. But it really depends on the actual product that you're marketing and and where you're targeting. So sometimes, for example, like Twitter, Twitter is very popular, especially in the Arab world. In Lebanon, it's mainly popular with the news channels and maybe certain celebrities. So who?
Politicians.
Who? So yeah, again, it depends on the product that you're marketing, and the idea is that you hit on the different channels. But I would probably use Facebook if I didn't use anything, just because of the volume that you have, especially for Lebanon. I mean, Lebanon, especially 5 years ago, it's a real challenge because there wasn't as much data as there is today. Now you have millions of users on Facebook, anywhere from the 12-year-old kid to the 80-year-old grandma, and so yeah, you have a bigger audience on Facebook than any other channel.
Now for the CRM question, why do we use Dynamics? Actually, Dynamics was, and I started at Saudi Real Estate around 6 months ago. It was already implemented, so I'm not maybe the best person to answer these questions, but when you choose your CRM, you definitely look at the tools you already use in-house, the processes you have in-house, the integration that you need to have with your CRM. And for us, Dynamic was, I believe, it made sense. It was the best player in the market, as well for us, and as well as the partners that you have. And there's always the financial question, scalability as well, the licensing model that you want to look into. Now, we can go into a CRM expert and discussion on the side. But Dynamics for us is proving to be a good tool for now, and we're still exploring the possibilities.
And Saudi Real Estate is actually a growing and large organization. So Salesforce, it's great, but it can get kind of costly when you start adding more and more users. And sometimes, I'm not sure about now, but it used to be where you were forced to put everybody on a certain subscription where they didn't really have to be there. So I'm not sure about now.
I'm using Zoho.
Yeah, not a fan. But.
Why not? And for your second question, the lean management. Definitely this is something we're exploring. But it's not, lean management comes with its requirements and prerequisites, and sometimes you need to have the proper mindset as well. So it's not easy to put in place in a non-technology for company. And we're trying to explore. We're exploring it at a small level, perhaps within the digital marketing team, and then see how we can exploit it. But definitely, lean management is it's something to look. We're looking into it. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
Merci beaucoup. Hervé Piglowski, thank you so much for your conference. Just one question, maybe it's difficult to answer. I would like to know which other social media does the Lebanese diaspora use outside Lebanon? Than the main ones, I mean.
So when targeting let's say the Lebanese expat community, it can be challenging because it's not, it is a huge community, but Facebook, again, Facebook is a great tool because you have you have more, let's say, data points that you can actually target, but you can also use, outside of the social media realm, you can actually use site targeting. And we've seen some success with site targeting where you see the typical news sites, you see the typical local Lebanese sites that have been visited by Lebanese from outside Lebanon.
Any other questions for anyone?
You had a question.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.